if you're pitted against someone else. So even if, let's say, you've achieved the objective, but you were not the top one of the class, you don't feel it's an achievement. That's competition. Communication is, you feel this overwhelming need to always communicate things in the simplest and clearest way. Third is learner. You don't care what's going to be learned, but you value the concept of learning in itself. Fourth is significance, and I think this is very typical of all contestants of Apprentice Asia. Significance means that you will only move and do things if there's the limelight in front of you. And the fifth is command. Command is being able to ask people to do things based on what you want to happen. If you're familiar and very much aware of your strengths, you know exactly where to go and what to do with the rest of people. And in my case, for example, I knew that one of my strengths was competition or communication. And if you've noticed, if you look at anyone in the boardroom who always keeps on talking, probably that's me. Because I love communication. And I know it's a strength that I can use whenever someone says that I should be kicked out or be fired, I know exactly how to defend myself. So when you go home, I'm not endorsing the book. It's around, I think, how much is it? I think 30 to 40 ringgit. When you get the book, I tell you, I asked my parents to take this, by the way. And it's so good because I'm able to manage them properly based on their strengths as well. This is the example I'd like to share. This is episode 1 of Apprentice Asia. It was about selling fish. And I'm sharing this because I knew my weakness was about selling. I'm really poor with selling because, as I mentioned a while ago, I think it always involves a lot of relationship building. Sometimes if you sell too much from the brain and not from the heart, people will not buy your products. And all of these guys most of them were sales guys. Except maybe for Sam. Sam was an IT guy. And I knew that if the cameraman, if you've seen episode 1, you didn't see me much selling, right? You noticed? I didn't sell much. I was always like behind the counters doing something else. Because I knew that my strength instead could be about strategy or pricing. I wasn't good with numbers too much, but I was okay enough to do it. And I told myself, if I'm not good at selling, I will not push myself to sell. Because the more I will sell, the more will the cameraman catch that, report it to the producers and Tony, and tell them that I should be kicked out in the first episode. So I said, no one volunteered to get the calculator and talk about pricing. And that was my strength. I took advantage of it, make it as my positioning for that episode. And lo and behold, luckily for me, I wasn't taken out as part of the final 3, the bottom 3 in the boardroom. That is an example that sometimes it's okay to work on your weaknesses, but don't spend too much time on it. Because the better results will be yielded if you invest more on your strengths. And the more strengths you have, they will overwhelm whatever weakness you have. That's why, in the Philippines, we always say, I'm not sure if it's the same with Malaysia, like if a girl is asked, how's your boyfriend? And then either you will say good looking, which we say guapo, or you say mabait. Mabait means nice. So when someone says, so how's your boyfriend? And the answer is, he's nice. That means it's not good looking, right? But that's one example that goes to show that the kind of strength that that person has with being a nice person overwhelms whatever weakness that he has. It's the basic example I can give, but believe me, in most of the time, on most aspects of life, it's how people value connections. The fourth thing I would like to share is, don't just follow your passion, cultivate it. It's always a cliche that people say, follow your passion, follow your passion. But this is not how things should work because it assumes 2 things. It assumes that all of us already have passions in life. Right? Who has here can say that he already knows what his passion is in life? Is there anyone? No one here knows what his passion in life? Oh, come on. You guys are giving me a different view of who accountants are. I'm sure, alright, maybe you guys are just shy, but I'm sure some of you here already know what their passions in life. It may not be accountancy per se. It can be something outside your line of work. It can be sports, can be arts, can be cooking, for example. And, well, that's my question. But the kind of case I'm trying to make here, guys, is that we are not in the same equal footing. Some of us already know what our passion is. In my case, I think I know it. My passion is really traveling and cooking. That's it. I may love marketing, but for me, I can drop it any time of the day, and I can just travel the rest of the world or cook or have my own restaurant. That's what I know. And that's exactly the same thing here. Because you're not supposed to simply follow your passion. Because number one, not all of you know what your passion is. And number two, even if you know what your passion is, all of you or some of us will be in an unfair world where it doesn't match the job that we have. Meaning, you love doing something else, but you have no choice but to get a different kind of job. And that's the same thing about this guy. We all know who he is. And to tell the truth, Steve Jobs was never really all about computers. By the time that he founded Apple Computers, okay, I'll give another voucher for this, if someone can answer. But if you've read his book, his biography, what was he into at that moment when he discovered Apple? He came from a country that time, and he was so fascinated with that country. Okay, since like I'm really gonna get all the big gift vouchers. He was into Indian culture, Eastern mysticism. So he was studying calligraphy by that time. He's a dropout from college, right? But at that time that he founded the how do you call it, Apple Computers, do you notice how iPhone revolutionized how things are very all about human touch? Like how it's so ergonomic and how it's so easy and intuitive to use it. That's because Steve Jobs applied everything about the philosophies of the Eastern and Indian world into the iPhone. And he said, I cannot find a way to channel all my passions because I have the opportunities in America. But he found that passion and channeled and cultivated it instead into something else that didn't have anything to do with it. And in this case, for example, that's how everyone, I think, should treat their passions. I love traveling, and in my former companies, I always find a reason to love it. I worked from the pharma industry before. Do you guys know, is there anyone here who's a doctor? Or who has a relative or loved one who's a doctor? If you work in the pharma industry, believe me, the doctors can really be such a pain at certain times. And I really hated that part of my job, having to go to their clinics and having to tell them why they should prescribe my brand instead. But the part that I loved about my job was that I always traveled a lot. And in this case, even if that wasn't my real job, it was the part of my job that I always looked forward to. So I cultivated my passion. I didn't like the pharma industry, but the traveling allowed me to do the things that I love. And that kept me going on and going on with my career. The same thing with Steve Jobs. Another example I'd like to give, okay, another voucher, because I really have to give it away and required to. Does anyone know who this guy is? Come on, some of you I think have worn his product. None? His surname is Makoski. Jake Makoski? Alright. Has anyone here heard of Tom's? The shoes? Right? Tom's. So he is the founder of Tom's. How did he discover this? It's something about Born in Passion. He's the first runner-up of season 4 of The Amazing Race. Just so you know, he was with his girlfriend. And he was so, how do you call this? He was so depressed after losing. So after that, he went to Argentina. And he spent there almost a month traveling because he loved the culture of Argentina. And these shoes are cultural shoes, or the shoes that a lot of, it's called espadrillos. It's the shoes that a lot of Argentinians wear. And he thought to himself, there are so many Argentinians or Latinos out there who cannot afford to buy their own shoes. So he thought of making those kinds of shoes. And he made a business wherein for every shoe that you buy, we give another pair to another shoeless child in Latin America. And that's how he built the empire as well. He never thought he was going to be able to make a business out of it, but because of his passion of wanting to serve a lot of needy or a lot of kids who didn't have any shoes or slippers, he built that empire. And now, if Nazrael from the competition actually was the one who introduced me to him. He gave me this book when we parted, and I tell you, if you read this, I forgot the name of the title of the book, but again, another book to read. Very, very inspiring. It tells his story of how he made it big from nothing. His office was just an apartment. He had interns who he did not pay. but were motivated to work for him because they believed in the brand and the product. Alright, so just to give you a reminder, I need to get the vouchers, guys. So please help me. Alright, I'll share with you some videos that I love. I'm not sure if a lot of you have seen this already, but this was a video I've seen 4 years ago.